Today I am upgrading a Lenovo ThinkCentre M91p small form factor tower. Solid choice for your budget and operates great in 2020. Um, the one thing I'm not upgrading is the CPU because it already has a Intel Core i5-2400, which is a quad-core processor that still runs at 3.1 gigahertz. Very smooth performance combined with some upgrades for surfing the internet and doing some gaming as well. So we're also putting in a Nvidia GeForce 210 graphics card with HDMI, DVI, and VGA outputs, 1 GB DDR3, 64-bit, I believe, 8 GB of DDR3 RAM, a 120 GB solid state drive, 350 GB hard drive, and we're going to be using a SATA power splitter and an extra SATA cable. And we will be able to stuff all of this into this small tower, but not without some modifications, which I will go through in this video. Okay, so for the modifications, you will need some extra tools if you have them. Some metal snips will come in very handy, and that'll become apparent a little bit later on. It never hurts to have a Phillips head screwdriver. However, I don't think we need anything like that today. So we'll start by opening up the tower, take a look inside. Everything is very conveniently laid out. I'm gonna shed some extra light. So normally, the hard drive, regular size hard drive, would go in here. Usually you don't have that much resistance, but that's okay. So we notice that we do have 4 SATA ports here, but we only have 1 SATA power cable. So that's why you need a SATA power splitter. Okay, so maybe we'll start with putting the RAM. Let's put the RAM in, get that out of the way first. Okay, next step, let's put in the video card. So it doesn't necessarily matter. If you're starting from scratch, it doesn't really matter what you put in first, second, third, or fourth. So with our ThinkCentre here, we have our little tab that you have to lift up, and then you can reach in and pull out the little brackets. I've accumulated a lot of these over time. And you have to find the applicable PCI slot, and that's very easy to figure out because it'll become quite obvious what can fit in that slot. As you can see, we have a smaller piece here, followed by a very longer piece that perfectly matches up with this slot here. And if you were curious, maybe that's why you're watching this video. So hopefully that helps out. I might time-lapse this part too, just because sometimes it can be a bit of a pain in the butt to get these in, but or not. It's very, very easy today. All right, so I already attached these small brackets, so I don't have to go through the process of switching from long to small, because these can fit in these small towers or a regular size tower too. So once you have these brackets fitted in, snap that back over, and you're good to go. We now have our video card installed. So this upgrade shouldn't take too long. I feel like I'm pretty well versed at it by now. I've done quite a few of these. Alright, next up, let's do the solid state drive. So we'll take out nice, fresh, refurbished solid state drive and get our hard drive ready to go too. Okay, so using a SATA power splitter is very easy. All you have to do is find your one SATA cable available coming from your power supply, plug in this end, and now you have power routing out to two separate locations. So it doesn't really matter which one goes into solid state drive, aka the boot drive, or your hard drive. It's just redirecting power. So we'll put that one there. I guess it would matter in some cases depending on where you want to place these in the tower case, but for today it's no big deal. We're just gonna plug these in and set them off to the side right here. I believe this is a hard drive that I had to fix with Gorilla Glue. And now we'll take our extra SATA cable, and we have SATA 0 and, oh, my mistake, we have SATA 1 and SATA 2 taken up, so we'll just go with the numerical order and plug it into SATA port 3 on the board. And this, we'll take the original SATA cable first and we'll plug it into the solid state drive. Okay. And our next SATA cable will be plugged into the hard drive. Now that is a very easy process. Hopefully this hard drive still works, but we'll definitely find out. It shouldn't take this long normally. I just have to line it up properly to make sure it fits in. And I'm actually going to pause the video for a moment because I think I have to modify something. Okay, so a couple of the SATA connections are a little bit bent, so I'm going to take some pliers and just try to straighten them out a little bit without breaking the little plastic clip. Now, if you have to, just be very careful because the items made out of plastic can snap rather easy if you're not careful, and that might completely screw you out of a hard drive. Okay, just have to apply a little bit of pressure to put this cable in because there might be a small buildup of glue. Yeah, there's definitely a small buildup of glue, so I'm going to pause this again. Okay, I just had to switch out our hard drive. So we have a 160 gigabyte Seagate Barracuda. This is just for educational purposes right now anyway. This will be the storage drive, so it can always be swapped out for something with extra space. Okay, so we have a solid state drive and the hard drive plugged in. We have our RAM and we have our video card. So the next thing to do is to boot it up and install Windows 10. And then later on we will fit everything into the case. So we're under 10 minutes at this point of steady filming. And again, this is not a long process. The upgrade's pretty easy once you have everything in front of you. That is exactly what I'm trying to demonstrate. So I'm going to pause the video and reposition the camera so we can watch a time lapse of me installing Windows. If anything pops up, then we'll try to troubleshoot it live. Okay, so before we move on, I just wanted to point out that you want to have your Ethernet cable plugged in or Wi-Fi adapter, USB Wi-Fi adapter, just so we can run all the updates while we're installing Windows. And of course, you want to plug in a cable to your video card, not the display port that's connected to your motherboard. Okay, now we will take our USB drive, load it up with Windows 10, stick it into a USB port, and now let's do this is the first time boot of this machine. So with any luck, we'll have no problems at all. Okay, so far so good. And we're greeted with the load screen. So you want to hit enter to pause startup. And we have a list of options here. So first, let's go into BIOS just to check that everything's there before we start installing anything. So we'll hit F1 to enter the BIOS setup utility. Okay. And we'll hit enter on system summary. And we have our solid state drive recognized, our hard drive recognized, our 8 gigabytes of RAM is recognized. Perfect. And of course, our video card is definitely recognized because otherwise we wouldn't have a display. So everything looks good. We'll hit F10, save and exit. Yes. And, oh. Well, I didn't get a chance to showcase how to get to the boot device screen, so I'm going to pause the video and just quickly do that. All right, when we're powering on again, I just wanted to quickly demonstrate how to get to the boot options on the ThinkCentre, just in case. You hit enter at the ThinkCentre logo, hit enter again to pause the countdown, and we hit F12 to choose a temporary startup device, which in this case is the USB to install Windows 10. And here's another place where you can check to see if all your drives are being recognized. And if they're not there, and if they're not in BIOS, then something's wrong and you'll have to troubleshoot that. But in this case, we'll hit the USB. And I'm going to film this part, but it will be a time lapse because it's just installing Windows 10. And you can look up any other instructions on the net for that. Okay, this portion of the video, I just want to highlight how I usually set up disks before installing Windows. Because generally I need to wipe contents and just make sure there's nothing on there before we start. So once you're at this screen, you can pull up command prompt by hitting Shift F10, and you type in disk part, DISK, PART for disk partition. Once you're into that, you type list disk, and we have disk 0, disk 1, and disk 2. So we select disk 0, which is the solid state drive, and you type select disk 0. And we want to clean, so you type clean, hit enter, and then we want to select the hard drive. In this case, it's disk 1, so we type select disk 1, hit enter, type clean, enter, and it looks like we're all good to go. And once we're done that, we can type exit, and exit once more to get out of control, or command prompt. We'll hit the refresh button. Okay, and we will select the solid state drive to install Windows on. All right, so we'll resume the time lapse at this point. Okay, at this point we are into Windows and we are good to go. So everything's big and blocky because the video card drivers have not been installed yet. In the meantime, what I do is hit the Windows key, type in updates, and we are going to install the Windows updates before moving on. So back to the time lapse. All right, so we have what appears to be a fully functional tower with all the upgrades. The only thing is that the fan on the graphics card is a little bit loud, but I think is totally tolerable, especially once the lid will be shut. You hear it a little bit less. Um, yeah, I'm going to test it out with some games. We'll check out the frames per second and maybe download a couple extra things like Google Chrome, but then call it a wrap for this video. So this game will hover around 45 frames per second, which is pretty good, but you also don't really need much more for a game like this. You'll have a pretty good time. Okay, now a game like Left 4 Dead 2, we're hovering around 25 frames per second. This is on medium settings. Not ideal for competitive gaming, but for something just kind of fun like this, it's actually not that bad. Okay, and a game like Counter-Strike, our frames per second are at the best 20. Not that great. At least for playing competitive in this game. And these are on lower settings. So it's definitely playable, but we'll have to really adjust it and see how it works for you. So this portion of the video is just to show how to install a larger hard drive into a tiny space without 90-degree cable ends. Because with this status splitter, you just don't have that, unfortunately. But that's okay. So earlier on in the video, I mentioned having metal snips. This will help quite a bit because in order to fit these cables in without squashing them and potentially wrecking the connection, I just have to cut this portion right off. And at this point, we're not worried about any kind of warranty, or this kind of modification is completely safe. And with metal snips, it makes it pretty easy work. And this will allow you to fit in that larger hard drive. And trust me, it's not an essential component. It's just a big piece of metal. So with a little bit of care, just takes less than a minute. And there we go. Alright. So I'll time lapse certain parts of this video because even though that part's really easy, actually fitting it in and squeezing all these cables together is kind of a pain in the butt, and a little bit time consuming. So I'll probably just time lapse this part. Okay, to keep the hard drive in this caddy, it helps to have it sitting just a little bit loose, but not so loose that it's going to fall out. So I've just taken a zip tie and tied off one end so it doesn't fall out. And this will allow the hard drive to fall down just a little bit like that, because we'll need that extra space when we're fitting it underneath the optical drive. Okay, I've gone ahead and placed the second one right beside it and just fed it through the small holes here where normally you'd feed a small screw into the side of the hard drive. And we'll just cut the ends off here with a pair of pliers. All right. Okay, now I'll just demonstrate with pulling this up a little bit. See how much it actually helps to have a little bit of flexibility with these cables. Okay, so I'm all out of double-sided tape, but normally I'll probably come back and stick some on the underside of this solid-state drive because it just fits snugly right beside the motherboard and right underneath a few cables and the air intake fans over here. So I'll come back with some double-sided tape and just make sure that's secured there. But even if you don't have the tape, it's not really going anywhere unless you drop this thing down a flight of stairs. And then in that case, you've probably got bigger problems. So I'll just pause the video or we'll do a quick time lapse of me just dealing with these cables. Got a little twist tie for them. Alright, it's in there nice and snug, and I'm just going to take a quick little peek to make sure nothing is bent the wrong way. I think we're good to go. So we're just going to fire this up one more time, but as you can see, once you get that caddy down, it's looking pretty good, and honestly everything is snug in there. You don't really need that double-sided tape, but you can if you want, of course. So we're just going to boot this up. Close the lid and boot it up one last time just to make sure everything works. Okay, everything's all good to go. So with all the upgrades, you'll have a nice little machine. You'll be able to do some light gaming. You'll be able to stream Netflix on your TV, do whatever you like with the extra display options, and hopefully you have a good time. And hopefully this video helped somebody out. So thanks a lot for watching, and this is the end of the upgrade video. Have a nice day.